It doesn't mean it won't be preserved on those other
Hey,
sites, right? Oh,
good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night.
okay.
And welcome
Good morning.
to the 133rd episode of Shochu'sday 2022 Year in Review. I'm Christopher Pellegrini. With me, as always, is Stephen Lyman, and we are in Japan broadcasting live this time for the last time in 2022. Good morning, Stephen. How you doing?
Good morning, Christopher. See, that's not your usual cup of coffee, not your usual background.
Nope, it is not. The
Yeah.
background's fine. The cup of coffee is not fine.
Where's the coffee from? I don't recognize that logo.
It's Family Mart, but Family Mart coffee down in Okinawa, where I am right now, is quite different from what's normal up on Honshu, where
Gotcha.
I live. It's a different cup. It's different sizes. It's different pricing. Like the lattes come in one size at Family Mart down here. They're small only,
Hmm.
and this is a regular cup of coffee with nothing added to it, but it's not great.
Oh, sorry to hear that.
And that's what happens when you pay 210 yen for your coffee.
Yeah, I guess so. I got beans from Tako, Tokata Coffee. I think that's what it's called. I'll go with that. Coffee shop here in Fukuoka for Christmas. So I'm enjoying that this morning. Costa Rican.
Yeah, sounds
Yeah,
like
good
you
stuff.
beat me on that one.
Yep.
I surrender. White flag. Holy.
No worries.
But yeah, sometimes you got to do what you got to do. The next my other option is in the hotel room, which is I think it's an espresso machine or something, which is also not going to be
One of
pleasant.
those things, yeah. I tend to avoid those when I'm in hotels.
Pods. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's wasteful. Anyway, so today is our year in review. But before we get to that, let's you had mentioned last time, maybe the last two times, and we should mention it one final time because later today we're going to be recording something important. You want to give a little bit of background on that?
Sure. So, I guess two pieces of information. One is we just had a new episode of Japan Distilled release on
Oh, yeah, that's
Christmas
right.
Eve. The Furusawa Distillery Profile. It's our first full distillery profile. Hopefully, folks enjoy that and learn a little bit about the Furusawa family, their history, and the wonderful drinks that they make. And then now that episode was delayed by about a week just for the editing. It was the first time we'd edited Japanese language interview into our English language podcast, and so it took a little longer for us to get that edit out. But now that it's out, that's in your feed from this past weekend. And Christopher and I this afternoon will be recording our 50th episode, our last episode of 2022 or of season two. And that episode is a Q&A. So if you have any questions about Japanese distilled spirits, history, traditions, trends, etc., 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 please feel free to reach out and ask. We've got a couple dozen pretty great questions so far, but we can always use more. We'll just talk as long as we've got things to say, and that'll be our last episode of the year, and then we'll kick off uh, 2023 with a whole new slate of episodes. So yeah, just hit us with your questions. Probably best to do it on Twitter or Instagram if you use those formats. Otherwise, don't send me a Facebook message. Uh, but yeah, or you can just put them in the chat log on YouTube, I guess. I just don't have
Sure.
access to Facebook right now,
Yeah, sure.
so yeah.
And never will probably because Facebook will
Possibly.
come. Yeah. Um, okay. Yeah, that's coming up soon, folks. So if you have anything that you want us to touch on, fire away or forever hold your peace, or at least until next year around this time. And let's see, we have a quick greeting from Armando over on Facebook. He's in Mie. Hello, Armando. Thank you for
Hey,
tuning in.
Armando. Yeah,
And
nice to see you on here. You don't, haven't been on these too much recently. I guess with the holidays, you've got time.
maybe that's what it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's see, hide that. And switching the banners, I guess we'll get on to. Well, let me get rid of this ticker tape thing,
Yeah.
and then the main event is the year in review,
Sure.
which you know, full disclosure, we haven't fully planned this out. We don't know exactly what we're going to touch on, but 2022 is about a few days from being no more,
Yeah.
for better or worse.
Yep.
And I don't know. Let's take a run at it. What sticks
Well,
out to you as some
a
of the
couple,
big
I
points?
guess the way I would kind of break it out, there's the domestic side of it for Japanese spirits. There's the export side, international market, and kind of like where we see things are going in the future.
Sure.
Uh, Domestically, of course, Japanese whiskey is still just going gangbusters, and uh, more and more distilleries opening up. You were just saying, I think last week or 2 weeks ago at the Japanese Fest in Tokyo, there were a bunch of distilleries you'd never even heard of that
Yep.
were there with their new make or to talk about their distilleries, and there's lots coming. We did cover that in a recent podcast episode earlier in the year about all the new whiskey distilleries. There's something like 80 licenses of them that have been approved in the last, I don't know, 2 years or so. So it's just a
Yeah.
huge scaling up of production, and we don't know what it'll be in the future. Is it going to be good whiskey? Is it just carpetbaggers, fly by night sort of places? Or are they
Hmm.
actually going to be putting their backs into it and making, great whiskeys going forward? We don't really
Hmm.
know. On the gin front, I feel like gin is getting more and more traction. I feel like I'm seeing it on more drinks menus here in Japan. It just seems to be a little bit more pervasive than it was even when I moved here 4 years ago. Um,
Sure.
I see gin highballs type drinks on izakaya menus, and that just those weren't very common before. So yeah, a little bit of
Yeah,
a shift there.
that's true.
Um, and then what about on the shochu and awamori side? How was their year over year sales? Did you hear anything about them feeling like this year was better or worse? What about the
No,
harvest? You
I
know?
haven't heard anything, and we won't know until midway through next year for the official numbers. But
Hmm.
I don't get the sense that it was. I definitely haven't heard anybody saying it was better than expected. So uh, I would imagine they lost another point year on year at least.
Hmm.
It could be two percentage points. Uh, I'm not really sure. I don't know how much of a rebound. I don't recall how much of a rebound last year was over 2020, which was dismal.
Hmm. Hmm.
So I think whatever ground was made up there was kind of really not anything to write home about, just because the domestic industry had reopened and Inshokuten were buying again, and that was
Hmm.
obviously going to get them somewhere closer to where they had been in 2019. 2022, on the other hand, hopefully moved more in that direction, but it's hard to say.
Hmm.
As many people have noted, places all across Japan are still closing at like 10 o'clock. We know from experience that this is true in other parts of the world. There's a human resources issue that is endemic, and it doesn't seem like we're going to be getting back to, despite the recent influx in tourism, there just isn't the human resources capability to deal with all of these folks who want to come in and live their tourism lives like it's 2019. So
Hmm. Hmm.
that's affecting everybody, and it means that there's fewer seats at the table. Those seats at the table are open for fewer hours of the evening, and people's lives, their lifestyles have adjusted accordingly. So people don't really intend to be out that late anymore, not as frequently as they used to. And as we've talked about many times, young people don't drink, so maybe it's all, writing's on the wall, so to speak. Our generation still drinks, certainly, and the generation after ours still drinks, but
Yeah.
the most recent lot that has come of age, nope, not really. I
Right.
saw
Right.
on the train yesterday that
Right.
compared to 1999, this was on the news panel on the train.
Hmm.
There's a TV, and they flashed up that per person consumption compared to 1999 is down 60%. So that's
Wow.
bad.
Yeah. Not good for the industry. You got a note from Justin that your audio is really low, so you might want to try to tweak
Oh,
that.
okay. Let
Um,
me try.
but
I keep
yeah.
the gain down on this thing
Oh,
because
there you are.
let me throw that up a little bit. Maybe this will help a little bit. Hopefully.
Yeah. Even whatever you did first was enough.
Well,
And
I
it got
brought it
even
straight
louder
up to
after
my
that.
mouth. Maybe I
Gotcha.
should just put it closer to me. Maybe I'll do that.
Yeah. Yeah. There you
Okay.
go. Cool. Yeah. So that's where I think the saving grace may be. I'm not saying that the industry didn't lose a point again this year, but Bone and Kai were back. Even last year, even though in Shokuten were open again, you really didn't have the big Bone and Kai, which are the end of year parties, which drive so much business for these places.
That's
It was
true.
really, really tough to get reservations in December. in Japan, here in Fukuoka anyway.
Okay.
So other than if you're looking for more than 2 seats someplace, you were just not getting in because there were all these big parties, and I think that should help with the consumption, at least a little bit of a rebound here at
A
the end of the
year-end
year.
bump.
And then you've got of course, the tourists coming in, but I'm pretty sure most of the tourists are focusing on beer, sake, and whiskey. If they're sampling local drinks, I doubt that there's too much diving into shochu and awamori, although perhaps a little bit more
Probably more than in the
than,
past.
than in the past. That's right. Yep. And lots and lots of tourists. I mean, it's been a little bit of a eye opener for me how many tourists have come to Fukuoka. I didn't think
Mm-hmm.
of this as much of a destination city before the pandemic, although of course it was, but mainly for Chinese and Korean tourists. But the Chinese aren't back, right? Chinese aren't traveling yet.
Not yet.
But I see tons of Korean tourists, and then I'm seeing quite a few European and American as well. So definitely
Yeah.
the tourists are back. That's
Sure.
got to be good for the
I
country.
noticed just walking around last night, I heard a lot more Korean down here in Naha than I have the last 2 years. Korean, Korea proximity
Hmm.
wise is a easy hop to Naha. So it was
Hmm.
that hurt a lot when that tourism or that channel of tourism dried up for a few
Yep.
years, nearly three
Yep.
years. So
Hmm.
now it's good to hear those voices again because you can hear the cash registers in the background as well. So um, yeah, I mean, I hope that the herd immunity is kind of getting to where it needs to be, that we can sort of keep marching confidently in this direction. But I've learned not to expect too much over the last few years. So we'll see. But with that in mind, in terms of tourism, I want to give this another plug, just because the amount of time on tickets is sort of there's a little
Running
bit
low.
of a you got to move quick type of feeling here. What do I hit? It says present. I guess I hit it. Now it's called the present button. Okay, this is dumb. Um, share screen. God, they keep making this more difficult. So Chrome tab. I just want to quickly plug the upcoming Hanami that is co-hosted by Kanpai Planet and Japan Distilled. And just so you know, we're talking Japan time here, but until December 31st, at the very end of that day, the very end of New Year's Day in Japan, is the end of the super early bird tickets, and those are the best bang for your buck. There's two ticket types. One is lean and one is large. Lean is an all-you-can-drink shochu and awamori tasting out in the park under the cherry blossoms. A selection curated by moi, and that's in and of itself a very good deal. But if you pay for the large ticket, which is about 1,500 yen more, you get three draft beers. Draft meaning like right off the tap. Baird is going to be there at our little party. Baird beer is one of Japan's premier craft breweries based down in Shizuoka. And they are going to have a couple of different beers at the party, and you just have to bring yourself and maybe bring some snacks. And that's about it. Starting January 1st, there's a price bump, so you do want to definitely pull the trigger sooner rather than later, I would say. The price bump is not insignificant at all. Let me stop the screen.
Yeah. So
Okay,
one clarifying question as somebody who's considering buying tickets. Uh, the can you buy beer cash on? Or the only way you get access to the draft beer is the large ticket?
it probably, there have been so many large ticket sales this year. Like
Yeah.
usually in the past, it was mostly lean.
Hmm.
This year, it's far and away large.
Yeah.
So people definitely want the craft beer in the park. My guess is there's not going to be the opportunity to, but I would say don't count on it. I'm
Okay.
not going to say it's impossible,
All right.
but
Well, my
especially early on in the day, they'll have calculated exactly how many beers they're supposed to pour out, and
mhm,
then depending on what's left, it may be possible later.
sure. Well, my 5K per beer expires in 4 days, so I can certainly do the large. I was just not sure I needed three of them coming back into the
Well, they're not gigantic beers.
yeah. Can
They're
I bring my own mug to make it a gigantic beer?
No, well, yeah, you'll still get a small pour, but sure, you can try. Um, For those of you wanting to come to the who are looking forward to the shochu and the awamori, I recommend bringing your own cup, just
Hmm.
because otherwise it's going to be a paper cup, which is not as much fun. So it's nice
Right.
to have
No,
your own
absolutely bring your own.
bring your own cup or glass or whatever you want to use. If you got it
Maybe
on a
maybe I'll have a
lanyard, even
little.
better.
Maybe I'll run a little side business where I'm gonna have a cup rental.
There you go. There you go.
You give me a
And a
deposit. You
rinse
can.
station or something. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's not a bad idea. We've already sold 40 tickets, which is crazy
Nice.
for to say. Yeah, it's gonna be by far our largest celebration
I'm
yet.
sure. I'm sure. Yeah, you're gonna have to
People are
cap it
ready
at
for
some
it.
point, right?
We are gonna have to because there's only so much beer we can haul into the park before we rip our arms out of our sockets or their sockets. So um, we had never dreamed that we would have to cap it, but I think there's
Hmm.
a chance that we will. There's also only so much space that we can commandeer in the park before
Right. Right.
we run out of blue tarps. So
Yep. Cool.
yeah.
It
Anyways,
should be
that's
fun.
coming up. Yeah, I'm excited for it,
Yeah.
and I'm gonna start popping little tidbits about what brands I plan, the main brands that I plan to pour at my little bar in the park,
Mm.
so people have an idea of what's going on. It's gonna be stuff that's very hard to get a hold of, I promise.
Yeah. Nice.
Um,
Very
and
cool.
so that's enough for the tourism thing, but continuing on with maybe what's happening overseas.
Hmm.
That's something that we can move on to 2022
Sure.
year in review.
Yeah. I mean, my perspective is that it's been a banner year for uh, shochu and awamori media attention. I've never
Hmm.
seen so many articles talking about it, introducing the categories, introducing the culture, putting them in like Christmas shopping lists and top 10 lists and that sort of thing, right?
Yeah,
John Barleycorn Awards even started a shochu category for their spirits competition, right? It's just such an increase in awareness pre-pandemic to post-pandemic about this drinks category or these categories, and that's just really, really exciting because it tells me we're on the
mm,
cusp of them becoming mainstream in the West, which
yep,
is what we've
absolutely.
been wanting for a long time.
Speaking of John Barleycorn, sorry, I'm going to commandeer the screen again. John Barleycorn in 2022, uh, they did their best of year that they just put out. And lo and behold, best shochu of the year. This is to give a little context here. John Barleycorn is a spirits competition in the United States that judges spirits from all around the world, and they have a very accomplished cast of judges who judge these things blind. They do a spring and a fall competition, kind of on a rolling admissions basis almost, and then they do a best of the year where they pit the winners from both of those two seasonal competitions, and then they come out with this long list of their top picks for the entire year. Now, Masako, our barley shochu from Honkaku Spirits, was chosen as the best shochu of the year after comparing the winners from the two seasonal competitions, and it was also chosen as a director's pick. So it was one of the three top spirits overall.
No kidding. Wow.
Yeah, and then also Steven said that the John Barleycorn Awards now have a proper dedicated shochu category. Well, they also have a proper dedicated awamori category, which they spelled incorrectly, but we're gonna give them points for for effort there.
Yeah.
At least they spelled the brand right. So Yokka Koji Awamori was the winner of this category, and if you haven't tried this yet, it's a 43% Ryukyu Awamori. That means it's 100% rice, inoculated with black koji, and this one has flavor and character for weeks.
Yep.
And you would do very well to go get a bottle of it. It is pretty widely available now in the United States, and Honkaku Spirits continues to bring in more and more of it. So if it's not at your local liquor store, then please ask for it, and they should be able to get a hold of it. But that's as Stephen was saying, two clear indications that the industry is paying more attention, be it media, be it trade
Hmm.
is aware of
Yep.
shochu and awamori on a level that was never thought possible before, really.
Yep. Yeah. No, it's heartening that these things are happening. And I have a comment on Yokokoji that I want to mention in a minute. But before I get to that, I'll just finish up the thought on the media and that sort of thing. Just another example is just in communication with people from around the world who contact me through social media with questions about, oh, I'm in a liquor store. They've got these three shochu. Which one should I buy? Here's a
Uh-huh.
drink menu. Which of these is worth trying? So often now people are saying, oh, but well, they only have one shochu,
Yeah,
but
right.
they have a shochu, right? That's a huge step, right?
Right.
So more and more places are, or at least have a toe in the water, are considering it, right? They're starting to think about it. It's something that they know that people are wanting, and they're starting to try to accommodate that, and I think that's fantastic. Going back to Yoko Koji, uh, something that was on my mind earlier this morning, I was having a little bit of a brainwave, and last night I was drinking. It would have been my bottle, my recently opened, but actually it was also my bottle kill, and I put it in the recycling bin already. Uh, Oishii's barrel aged 25% shochu, barley shochu from
Uh-huh.
Oishii in. I'm sorry, not barley, rice. Oishii Distillery down in Kumamoto, right?
Okay.
And they're the ones who have the Oishii whiskey in the States, right? The Koji whiskey. But I was drinking their 25% barrel aged shochu, which comes in beautiful packaging, and it's a nice light, refreshing barrel aged. Probably what maybe 3 years in the barrel. Rice shochu. But it was feeling really, really thin. Like
Mm-hmm.
as I was drinking it on the rocks, it just wasn't what I wanted. And so I poured about a half shot of Yokokoji in the glass before I added the shochu, and suddenly that drink had body. It
Yeah.
had girth. It was you could still taste the vanilla and everything you'd expect from the wood, but you had just a little bit more to chew on. And something you and I have talked about that we haven't really done too much, but I think we need to think more about is doing our own blending,
Mm-hmm.
right? What two brands could you put together to make some sort of shochu blend that actually elevates both, right? One plus one
Yep.
does not equal two, but that equals three or four or five.
Yep.
So taking a really full-bodied awamori and blending that with a light vacuum distilled rice shochu that's got some interesting character is a fun way to do that. I think you have to be really careful with proportions,
Oh yeah.
but I think we're going to get to a blending episode in season three, and we'll cover how distilleries blend, why they blend, if they blend, those kinds of questions. But then I think at the end, maybe we talk a little bit about doing a little home blending because I think that's something that we don't really talk about, but certainly happens in awamori.
Oh
Uh,
sure.
and you know, wonder if it should be happening more in shochu as well.
Yep. That's that's
So
uh that's definitely something to look forward to in season three.
yeah.
Absolutely.
So,
Uh,
but how about you? You spent more time in the States this year than I did. What's your impression of how things are tracking, at least in the U.S.?
the cocktail scene for Japanese spirits in general, and shochu particularly, also to a lesser extent, awamori, is healthier than ever in terms of just the number of bartenders who are actively pursuing new flavor combinations and looking for new ways to stand out. Shochu obviously is a vast arsenal of tools to add to anyone's shed. So it's it was exciting to see just repeat like almost on a bi-weekly basis you'd hear the name of another bartender who had done something really interesting with a honkaku shochu on their cocktail list.
Hmm. Hmm.
And I've never consumed more cocktails in my life. Honestly, 2022 for me was the year of the cocktail. I learned so much about cocktails.
Hmm.
Um, I am very excited about what that means moving forward into the future. And JSS, the Japan Shochu and Sake Makers Association, brought a clutch of very accomplished bartenders to Japan recently. We're talking the likes of Kenta Goto, we're talking Julia Momose. They brought two different crews over and a bunch of other very well regarded people behind the stick or behind the bar, and they brought their own philosophy, they brought their own techniques, they mixed up some pretty amazing things. There was a great event at, what the hell is the name of that hotel? I forgot the name of I forgot the name of the place, but really nice. Oh, Edition, Bar Edition over in Toranomon, and they had these different bartenders from from all over doing their own bespoke or signature shochu or awamori based cocktails, and it was like, yeah, this is the vanguard. This is the
Hmm.
cutting edge. No disrespect meant to the amazing bartenders that are doing really really interesting things here in Japan. Folks like Shuzo Nagumo and Shingo Gokan, of course, and many other people who have been inspired by them. But it was it's just a different approach, I guess.
Hmm. Hmm.
And so it's going to be really fun to see these two sides kind of riff off of each other, compete against each other in many senses, but benefit from that interaction, and especially drinkers like you and I will benefit from it as well moving forward. But I think this is something big, and we'll do a what's coming in 2023 episode soon. I'm gonna talk cocktails again, I think.
Yeah, yeah. No, cocktails are key, and it was a year of cocktail for me as well. My beer restriction 5K rule for 2022 meant that I was drinking more cocktails at home, learning.
Uh-huh.
Basically, I mean, I taught myself. I already knew how to cook before the pandemic, but I really started to focus on it and make the investment to become a really good home cook, because if I wanted restaurant quality food, I needed to learn how to make it.
Hmm.
And that was accomplished in the first 18 months, and then in the last years, I've been spending a lot of time learning how to make cocktails, building out my home bar, getting my mixers, shaker, etc. And and then what I'm doing, of course, because we're hoping obviously that shochu gains traction in the U.S. and in other markets through the cocktail, is I've been looking at shochu as a replacement or an accent to different classic cocktails.
Hmm.
Because I'm not going to come up with my own cocktail recipe. There's no way I don't have the knowledge or the experience to do that, but I can follow a recipe reasonably well and make something. And I'm gonna get I figure out what goes in what kind of drinks. And I found that sweet potato shochu, because of the beautiful aromatics, can be a really nice gin replacement. It'll
Mm.
completely change the character of your cocktail, but it can be delicious. I'm not
Sure.
necessarily talking about martinis, but I'm thinking about Negronis. My cocktail for Christmas was the Alaska, but using sweet potato shochu rather than gin, and that's
Yeah.
with yellow chartreuse, and it was just
Yep.
a beautiful drink. It was
Yeah.
really, really nice. So there are a number of different ways that I think shochu can very easily be integrated into a bar program in some classic cocktails with unexpected results.
Which sweet potato shochu did you use for that Alaska riff?
So the first one I made with Yamatazakura purple sweet potato
Oh, the
genshu.
Benny
Yeah, like
Benny
that
Genshu.
yeah. So an undiluted. I just had the tech on it given me it during Golden Week. I still had it in an unmarked bottle, and I was like, oh, I should probably drink through this. So I
Okay.
made it with that. That was lovely. And then the next day I made it with colorful,
Okay.
which was really nice. I think mahoko would be beautiful in that drink. Um, so I think there's a number of different sweet potato shochu that are or will be available in the U.S. that that make a beautiful Alaska. And it's you need orange bitters, which I was able to find on Amazon Japan,
Oh, sure.
and
Yeah.
and then yeah, and then a lemon twist. And it's about 2 to 1 the shochu um, to the yellow chartreuse, as long as you're using a high proof shochu. If you're using a lower proof shochu, you probably want to punch it up a little bit more. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Makes sense.
yeah, it was a nice drink, a nice way to finish the year on my cocktail experimentation. So
Well, as Armando just came through with a question that may kind of lead us into 2023, um, the no color rule for shochu. I'm
yeah,
personally pessimistic,
yeah,
but
I think we should save this for the Q&A episode.
Yeah, we could. Armando, if you don't mind, we might actually kidnap that one and use it on our podcast. Thank you. He also, um, I think he also just popped this. Oh no,
This is
sorry, this
is
is somebody else. Sorry,
yeah,
Hanagman said they just listened to the Furusawa episode. Thank you very much for listening, as always. Yeah, Furusawa deserves all the success that she has earned for herself and much more, and hopefully that's coming
for sure.
soon. Um, and yeah, back to Armando. We're gonna kidnap that question. I apologize. That one's we're gonna use that later
Yeah,
this afternoon because it's a good
you'll have to
question.
listen to episode 50. It'll be out. It'll be out later this week. You don't have to wait long.
Yep. So cool. We're at the half hour mark. Why don't we finish this up with any personal reflections, highs, mids, lows?
Sure.
Um, I don't know.
Yeah, I
Like I
mean,
said, everybody, we didn't really plan this out.
yeah.
Surprise, surprise.
I was, I mean, as I mentioned now, this will be my third time mentioning it, is I made the New Year's resolution I was going to run 5K in order to be able to drink a beer in
hmm
2022, and I managed to do that the entire year. Um, I will not be doing that again next year. I actually, what's ironic about it is I actually gained weight. It's my first year in Japan, year over year, that I actually had gained weight by the end of the year.
Interesting.
First 3 years I was here, my weight would go down each, and I was focused. I was cycling. I was doing lots of things to manage my weight, but then it bounced back up a little bit this year with the beer rule, and that's ironic because I was drinking more beer in past years than I did this year.
But
But
you were
I was
topping that
replacing
up with yeah.
I was replacing it with sugary cocktails and canned chuhais and things like that. So I think that rule's going to go away, and I'll think about this year's 2023's self improvement goal as far as my New Year's resolution. I'm a kind of task driven, goal oriented personality type. So for me, when I set these things, I just kind of do them. Another one that I didn't publicize, but I did, was I decided that I was going to, my office is on the third floor, and I was going to climb the stairs to the third floor without fail, unless I was carrying something heavy,
Okay.
right? Or if I was pulling a cart or something like that I just couldn't manage up the stairs with. And I managed to do that the entire year. So I did not take the elevator without carrying something heavy or pulling a cart. I think I
Yeah,
took the
stairs
elevator
are good.
three times all year.
Hmm.
So yeah, it was a good. That was helpful. Yeah. Um, yeah. For me, it's really kind of that health related. As I'm in my early 50s now. I need to think about keeping myself healthy, fit, uh, that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Want to stick around a while longer and continue to do what we're doing and all the other things that I'm interested in. So,
Mm-hmm.
um, yeah, that's been my focus, I guess. And I'd say for me personally, like the last 3 years, there's been a lot of anxiety, a lot of stress, but a lot of satisfaction as well. I think getting through a second full season of the podcast is a great accomplishment. We weren't as diligent on getting the episodes out on time, but I haven't heard any complaints. So I'm assuming
And we
that
were
people don't.
busier than ever, so
Yeah, true, true. So for me, it's yeah, it's been a good year. I'm hoping 2023 will be even better. Looking at my January calendar, I know it's going to be busier than last year was, with all the friends and relatives and business associates who are flocking to Japan now that they're allowed. I think
yeah.
there's going to be a lot of entertaining domestically here in Japan in 2023.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, but looking forward to it. It's all good. And how about you, Christopher? What's your thoughts?
Yeah, it was. I was just happy to be in the states a bit more and doing one of the few things that I feel like I'm actually kind of okay at, which is um, the educational bit of proselytizing, evangelizing about Japan's indigenous spirits, and the more time I can spend really outside of Japan doing that, I think the better, the more satisfied with everything that we've been doing I will be personally. So hopefully in 2023 we'll go from, I guess I was in the States for about 3 months total this year,
Hmm.
and next year we can expand that a little bit, um, and keep on doing fun things, exciting events, very crucial tastings with people in the trade. Keep going back, again, rinse and repeat, and make sure that it becomes really something that's from, back of mind to front of mind for people, and make sure that they're constantly, every time they hear the word shochu, they think, oh yeah, I know about this, and I had this really interesting experience with this, and this is something that I feel like I can share with people. So that, I guess that's what I'm constantly focused on. It was another really stressful year. I don't know how much I loved 2022. Am I a big fan of 2022? I don't think I am. But it was, one foot in front of the other, and we'll keep doing that in 2023. And we really appreciate everybody who's watching right now, both live and in the future when you catch this on the delay, for your time and your attention and your interest, and your, also evangelizing for us, and helping us to bring new people to the trough. Bring circle everybody around, learn some fun things about just what is still a very little known aspect of world spirits traditions, and we're aiming to change that. So
Sure.
thank you for being here with us on the ground floor, and we're gonna onward and upward as far and as fast as we can go, and please hang on and come
Yeah,
along with
no,
us.
it's agreed. It's the without the encouragement and the feedback we get from listeners for the podcast, I think we might have given up after the first season. Maybe it's been really fantastic and it started out when the podcast first started. It was really hearing from friends, people I already knew or I was acquainted with, and now I'm hearing regularly from absolute strangers. Just discovered your show, absolutely love it. Thanks for what you're doing. Got this random question, or I want to do a little craft home distilling in my country that allows it, kinds of questions, and they want to know, how do I use koji? Where do I get koji? So it's really, really cool. There's a community out there, and it's a matter
Yeah.
of figuring out how to pull them together, and all of us sharing our love for these drinks. So no, good stuff. I'm a moderate fan of 2022.
Good. I'm glad one of us is. I
Best year
Yeah.
of the 20s so far, I'd say.
Oh, that's fair. Oh, hands down, hands down. No, you are correct. It was just, I think it was the stress of the whole thing. So,
Sure. No, I hear you.
um,
Well,
and
hopefully 2020.
which I'm reasonably, comfortable with. I mean, we're everybody in the world is so accustomed to it now, but um, I don't know. It takes a toll. So,
Absolutely.
uh, anyway, everybody out there, I think we can wrap it up now.
Oh yeah.
I think, and Anagman, for your Q&A question, we may borrow that one for the podcast as well, if you don't
Yeah.
mind.
Yeah, I think that's what he's
Um,
referring to.
oh,
So,
okay, great. For the Q&A, yeah,
yep.
thank you very much.
Yep.
That's a very good question, something that Stephen and I have thought a lot about. So
Yep.
we will have a very simple but astute answer to that. Astute might be the wrong word. I don't know if anything I ever say is astute. But anyways, we will have an answer. And with that, we will bid you adieu this episode and this year of Shochu'sday. Thank you very much for tuning in once again. We will be back in the new year for the 134th episode of Shochu'sday. So wherever you are in the world right now, thank you for joining us. And from both of us here in Japan to all of you out there around the world, a very hearty and heartfelt kanpai.
Kanpai.